Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Carry On, brought to you by Nation's Finest, where our mission is to support America's military veterans and their families with a comprehensive approach to housing, health, and employment that helps them to achieve self-sufficiency and reach their full potential. If you or a veteran you know needs help, or if you'd like to make a donation, please visit nationsfinest.org or call 833-468-9676. Again, that's nationsfinest.org or call 833-468-9676. I'm your host, Mark Miller, Army Veteran and Communications Director for Nation's Finest. Today, we talk with J.R. Smith, the Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Veterans Ranch. The Veterans Ranch is a nonprofit veteran horse retreat located in Lakeland, Florida, whose mission is to help those individuals lay down their heavy coat of burden, leave it there, and move forward. The ranch pairs horses with veterans to help them in their healing journey through basic caregiving, trail rides, and healing workshops. JR helped found the organization in 2017 so veterans and their families can get assistance they need and walk forward as new and improved versions of themselves. J.R. Smith, thank you so much for joining us today on Carry On.
It is our pleasure to be here and be able to speak to your wonderful audience today.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I'm sure our audience does too, with all that you have to share. So, jumping in here, before we get to talking about the ranch, what was it like for you growing up in a military family, and how did that shape the career that you found yourself in today?
You know, looking back at it today, it was very interesting. When I was younger, when my dad got out of the Navy, first of all, in 1973, he, like a lot of now vets coming out, didn't really know what he wanted to do with himself. He was put into a job fair with a recruiter and learned what it meant to wear thick-soled shoes because they put him out with a Kirby vacuum salesman. Anybody older than me, being 49 years old, will know what that is. You wore the thick-soled shoes, so when they slammed the door in your face, you could put your foot in the door, and it didn't crush your foot. He realized that wasn't going to be cool, so he ended up with a company called Avco, which is out of the Midwest, now part of Citicorp. Ironically, up until about kindergarten age, I wasn't a Navy brat. I was an Avco brat. My dad finished their 2-year management program in 9 months, and they made him a fixer. He'd go from store to store in Lawton, Oklahoma, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, St. Louis, Missouri, parts of Nebraska, and he'd go fix stores. So I always moved around a bunch. I was an only child till 1980 before my sister was born. And then it was very interesting. I was always around adults, so I was always told I sounded like an adult before I was, in kindergarten. I grew up in a very loving household in St. Louis, Missouri once I hit that school age. But there was always policies, procedures, and enforced disciplines. My dad's a 2-tour Vietnam vet. His brother was in the Navy, so he always had an eye on me. Their father was Big Red 1 towards the tail end of World War II. And, of course, his parents were, Depression parents. So, there was love, but there was, we don't really care about your feelings too much. Go out, get a job, make a difference in the world. That dash between when you're born and when you die, that's what you did in the world to make a difference. So it was very fun. But looking back on, I loved what I had growing up, because when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, my dad was taking me to conferences to see Jim Rohn, Tom Hopkins, guys like that. Some aren't with us here on this earth anymore, but taking notes and speaking or listening to really some of the greater minds of the time and just learning those things was truly amazing. And it really did shape what I do today. I mean, I'm up before the sun. For all the Army veterans out there, remember this line: we do more before 9 a.m. than most people do in a day. That's generally me. I'm up 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. By 9 o'clock, I've almost had a pot and a half of coffee, and I'm rocking and rolling for the day. So a lot of fun.
Those early mornings and dependence on coffee, that sounds very familiar to the veteran community. So
yeah, one of my coffee mugs says, "I drink coffee for your protection."
I love that. I'm gonna have to look for one of those.
Yeah.
So with that military background and all the exposure to the military veterans in your family, I can see how that shaped what you're doing now. So could you tell us a little bit more about the Veterans Ranch, its mission, and the work you do there every day?
Yeah, absolutely. The Veterans Ranch was formed really by an idea. My dad always taught me to keep a legal pad by the bed in the middle of the night in case you get an idea. Well, in October of 2017, it's going to be hard for everybody to see, but on here it says ranch. Kind of hard to read. But, I've had a lot of legal pads with a lot of ideas with things that didn't really go anywhere, but this one did, but it didn't make a lot of sense. My wife and I always wanted our own little section of Americana, a couple horses and what have you in the world. But the word ranch never came into play. Well, good Lord works in mysterious ways, as we all know. One day we're headed to Bass Pro Shops. I am that guy you can drop off at open and pick up at close. We stopped at Chili's for lunch, and I got an idea. And I asked my wife for a pen, ended up asking the waitress for about 20 napkins, and ideas just started flowing like water. And, some good ideas, some bad ideas. You take a couple half-ass ideas, make a good idea out of it. But by December of 2017, the Veterans Ranch was born. The corporate name, if you look us up on GuideStar.org is where you can look up different charities. And we are a platinum level member with GuideStar. You'll see us under PJJR Ranch Corp. My wife's Pamela Joe, and I'm JR. So that's the meaning behind that. But what we started doing then is polishing our message, polishing what we do every day. We run this out of our house. Like most nonprofits, we didn't start with a lot of money and, a gajillion acres and 50,000 horses and everything else. We utilize friends and neighbors' horses. We go put on events at certain places that have horses where we can do trail rides and things of that nature. So on a daily basis, we're setting up new events to do. We're out talking to people about new horses that we can work with, what we have going on right now, and growing and expanding. We're licensed here in Florida. We're corporately based right now in Lakeland, Florida, which is halfway between Disney World and Tampa, but we're also licensed in the great state of Texas. And so we're looking to expand to a location out in Texas as well and have 2 locations in 2 different states. So those are great things that we have going on. But, the main thing we're going to do when we go out to the events is we're going to put one of these in your hand. This is one type of groom and brush, okay? Horses are prey animals. They don't know you. They don't trust you. So you have to start building bonds of trust with a horse. That being said, horses are extremely intuitive. They can feel a gnat land on their back. So what do you think they feel from you 2 feet away? Short answer is everything, right? They know if you're upset, angry, scared, nervous, whatever the case might be. I talked to a gentleman the other day who's out in Idaho and had a bad crotch rocket accident and got his right side kind of banged up. He was visiting his friend's horse ranch, and this big Clydesdale, okay, the Budweiser Clydesdale, type Clydesdales, comes up to him and puts his head right on his shoulder, he said. He knew his shoulder was hurting. Just walked right up behind him, put his head on his shoulder. How did that make him feel? Amazing. Because, he didn't say anything about his shoulder hurting. We've had people that have broke down in tears at events because they said they made more progress in 10 minutes with a horse than 10 years and 3 failed suicide attempts on the couch. Meaning, instead of telling everybody, how bad they feel or how it makes them feel, they made real progress with this horse. That's just a couple examples of what we do here on a daily basis.
What you're describing there sounds very similar to some of the progress veterans make with service dogs sometimes, and it's that intuition of animals you're referring to that really extends to horses as well. So it's so fascinating to hear about that, because we don't hear about horses as much as we do service dogs. So this is great insight here. So you talked about the gentleman who had a shoulder injury. Looking at the bigger picture, what are some of the common struggles and experience that veterans are facing and trying to overcome personally, that, some of the most common ones that they're facing when you have veterans come out to the ranch?
Yeah, a lot of what we see is what you hear about on a regular basis. Sad to say, but it's true. PTS, I'm a big believer in dropping off the D. The government calls it a disorder so you can qualify for something. A disorder is being born with a leg shorter than another, or a hole in your heart, or something of that nature. Post-traumatic stress is something y'all have walked through in life. life is 10% of what happens to you, 90% how you react to it. We can't live in the 10% world because you've already experienced that. The Veterans Ranch is trying to help you with the 90%. And we're not here to fix you. Veterans aren't broken. Y'all don't need fixed. Okay. I hate that term. We need to fix veterans. No, you don't. You just need to help them understand what they've walked through and deal with it better. We deal with potential marital situations. We do group therapy with a horse. What we see a lot of cases is husband or wife deploys, and whoever the other parent is left at home to be chief cook and bottle washer. And sometimes when that deployed, person comes back home, they want it the way it was when they left and don't understand why it can't be. Well, because you've been gone for 6 months to 2 years or however long it's been, and that person left at home's had to do everything. So we put them together with a horse because the horse is truly the one in charge. So we kind of bark the orders, teach them what to do, and we've had families break down in tears. And I mean, I might be 6'4", 260 and try and be all tough, but when you're around me, man, and everybody starts breaking down, I'm a big teddy bear. And, I'm group hugging with everybody else because truly it's as therapeutic for us as it is the people we're serving.
I can imagine that. And great point you make there about not fixing veterans, but understanding veterans. That actually shows a lot of understanding on your part already there, and makes it clear that you work with veterans quite a bit. I also love what you said about whether it's the husband or the wife who deploys, because we forget that's right. Husbands and wives, men and women deploy and deal with some of these same struggles. So terrific to hear you're helping all of those groups. So in some of your writing and previous speeches, you've described and referred to horses as God's majestic animal. And you've touched on this a little bit already, but from your experience, how can horses help to facilitate the healing journey and to use a better word that you just used, that understanding journey for veterans that come out to your ranch?
Well, the true key with horses is that, horses can be a little smart ass. They can talk back to you, maybe try and nip you, bite you, stomp on your foot. But the bottom line is they're great listeners. You can dump all your problems on a horse and it's just going to sit there and listen. Okay. Trail ride before last, we had a gentleman that he seemed a little nervous around a horse. We weren't sure. So we put him with the gentlest horse we had there for the day, which is a Belgian. Okay. Now take that Clydesdale I mentioned, shrink it down just a little bit, and that's a Belgian. And they measure horses in hands. Okay. Like this, 1, 2, and so on. This horse was about 18 hands. Like I said, I'm 6'4", so at its withers or at its shoulders, I'm looking right at its shoulders, okay? This guy was 5'5" with boots on. He's looking at ribs. Now, his wife was medically discharged Air Force, had been riding dressage for 20 years. She was in her element, being around horses, but he was seeming a little sketchy. She comes over and says, JR, he's nervous, he's scared, he's cursing me out, he wants to go home. I said, you nailed it when you said scared. Now, let me tell all your listeners here something very clearly. I didn't wear the uniform. I'm a proud patriot. So is my wife. So we will never talk to someone like we did wear the uniform. So I always have veterans there with me. I brought a Marine buddy over with me who's a giant smartass, but I love him to death. And I told him what's going on. I said, you got this? He goes, oh, I got this. Comes over, and uniform to uniform was just breaking him down, saying, what's wrong with you, airman? You a wuss? And I'm going to clean this up for the audience. You a wuss? You're going to go out to Okinawa and you can't get up on an effing horse? What the F's wrong with you? And then, start laughing while you're saying it, because he can get away with doing that where I couldn't. And then the long and short of it is we got him on the horse. He said, guys, you got to understand something. I'm from the Bronx. I've never been around any kind of animal, and you want me to get on this monstrosity. We got him comfortable with the horse, taught him how to steer more with his hips and with his hands, and got him out on the trail ride. When he came back, he had this giant ear-to-ear grin on his face. And when he got off, we said, how you doing? He said, I'm walking a little funny, because, again, he's 5'5", and a Belgian's about yay wide. And he says, can I get a Powerade out of the cooler, and please, can I go out on the next ride? His wife was in instant tears. And that's what a horse can do for somebody. It wasn't us. We didn't pat ourselves, break our shoulder, patting ourselves on the back. It was the good Lord and the horse that day. We just brought everybody together. So I just want to show real quick. When you look at our logo, it's the horse bowing to the cross, bowing to the soldier out of reverence. And it's a soldier kneeling before the cross, thanking the good Lord for everything he brought him through. And the horseshoe, some days I'd just rather be lucky than good. Okay, so, are we a faith-based organization? You bet we are. But we're also kind of like that Charlie Daniels song where he says, still in Saigon, 1 minute I kneel down and pray, the next I stand and curse. We're human. We're all human. We understand that, and we don't judge anybody, okay? I can curse like a sailor just like the next guy. So, but that's, again, wrapping that up, that's the power of what a horse can do for somebody. Here's close to a 2,000-pound animal who just gave this young man 2 rides of his life. And when he goes back out to Okinawa, guarantee it, chest is out a little higher, said, you ain't going to believe what I did.
Great story. It sounds like what I'm hearing is that his ability to overcome that fear of being on a horse probably helped him to overcome a lot of other things going on in his mind or maybe physical stuff as well.
Yeah, would completely agree.
That's so great to hear. So we've hyped up all the good that horses can do. We've hyped up how much healing and understanding happens at the ranch. So let's get to the big question now. For the veterans in our audience who are listening and who might benefit from a therapeutic experience such as horse therapy, what can they do? Where can they go to look?
Well, they go to theveteransranch.org, and they'll find all the stories we were talking about. You can email us, call us, just find a way to get in touch with us, even if you're not in Florida. If you're somewhere nearby, find a way to get in touch with us, because we may not be able to help you in our part of Florida, but we are connected and we have people in other states that can, help you where you need that help. You'll see on our website and our T-shirts that we sell, we have a Latin phrase. It says, non solum pugnare unitum stamus, which means don't fight alone, united we stand. You fought together in your unit. Don't feel like you got to suffer in silence when you get out. Okay? Reach out to us. Ask for that help. It takes a stronger person to ask for the help than it does to suffer in silence. So reach out to us. Call us. Our next event's probably going to be sometime early in January after the holidays. And if you're anywhere within about a 5-6 county area of Polk County, which is where we're located in Lakeland, Florida, we want you all to come out and have fun. We look forward to getting to Texas as well and getting our stuff set up out there so we can have 2 locations and be able to help near 5 million veterans between 2 states.
Outstanding. What a great mission. What a great service you're providing. Let me ask one more big question here. As you know, we operate as Nation's Finest. We operate in California, Arizona, and Nevada. So one of our clients is willing to get on a plane and come out to Florida. Do you take out-of-state veterans as well?
Absolutely. Come one, come all. We're not just a post 9/11 organization like some out there. If you're still kicking from World War II and you want to come play with a horse, come on out. And, if we have it available, we will pay for your way to get here. Y'all raised your right hand and signed on the dotted line to potentially give that last full measure of devotion for your country. That's all the payment we need. So if we can pay to get you out here, we'll pay to get you out here. It truly is our pleasure to serve the ones that served us all.
Well, thank you so much for what you're doing. Much respect to you and everyone out there at the ranch. So again, if folks are interested, our listeners today, that's theveteransranch.org. And for our video viewers, that's up on the screen. For the audio viewer or for the audio listeners, that's theveteransranch.org. J.R. Smith, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing these great stories about what you're doing at the ranch and helping our fellow veterans to understand one more resource that's out there.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. Great to be here and look forward to speaking to some new friends soon.
All right. All the best to you, JR. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of you who joined us again today. We'll be back next week discussing issues relevant to veterans and those who care about them. Again, if you or a veteran you know needs help, or if you'd like to make a donation, please visit nationsfinest.org or call 833-468-9676. Thank you again for joining us today, and as always, carry on.